Welcome back. You're tuned into Educational Insights with me, your host, Mariam Mia. And moving on, yes, parents who are feeling uncertain in terms of institution, the uncertainty of not knowing. And then there are many parents who, because of COVID, their financial circumstances have changed and maybe they can no longer afford to send their children to an educational institution. Are looking for alternate options, as well as the fact that for better part of 2020, children were at home learning via online platforms. So parents had become more involved in the children's everyday lessons and lesson content, and had a better understanding of the constraints, the challenges, the syllabus, and also might have ideas that, you know what, I'm not happy about the type of content my child is being taught, or I need to broaden their horizons. I find this current curriculum actually very limiting, because this is the first time that parents then had a taste for what it was, the day-to-day learning and lesson plans that the children were receiving in the type of educational instruction. So maybe they felt that, you know what, this is not what I'd like my child to learn, or I want them to have a much broader education that will hold them in good stead when they reach responsible adulthood or in their adult life, so that they can be responsible, contributing members of society. So to help us understand the challenges as well as the benefits of homeschooling as an alternate, I have with us two guests. I have a parent, well, they are both parents, but the one I have here, I just want to get Bouwe van the Eems. And he's been actively involved in the Association for Homeschooling and the Petzolozzi Trust for a number of years. And he's also had various meetings with department officials since 2004. And with his family, he's been running the SA Homeschoolers website since 2010. So vast encyclopedia of knowledge and experience in terms of homeschooling. And then I have a parent who is a graduate of Harvard Law, and she's also a mother who elected to homeschool her parents. So I have Sister Fatima as well joining me. I'd like to welcome Bouwe first. Welcome to Educational Insights on Salam Media.
Good afternoon, Mariam. Thank you very much for a fantastic introduction.
And Assalamu alaikum, Fatima. Bham Dadabai. I'm just smiling because my producer set us up and she got me one mom to talk about her experience. But Fatima and I know each other personally, and we go back way back when. And I, yes, can testify that she chose this route very early on, along with a few other mothers, in terms of what they deemed they wanted their children to receive out of education, and they've been successfully homeschooling their children. So it's so pleased because I can testify to the efforts they have made. So Bouwe, I want to start with you, because your journey in terms of homeschooling started, what made you decide to homeschool your children?
We decided to home educate our children around the late 90s, 1999, because it was good for our family. Since the parents spend a lot of time with their children, it creates strong family bonds, and it also gives us a lot of freedom to educate when and where and how we want. And it's also a way that you can ensure that you transfer your values to your children. So those were our motivations about 20 years ago.
And you know what? I think for many parents, the challenge is how to get into the system. And also some parents, they lack that self-confidence and that self-belief that, will I be a good enough educator, and can I do this? Will I manage my time productively in terms of lesson planning? Am I disciplined enough? How difficult it is to homeschool your child?
I think most parents can do it. It is not for every parent, but every parent that commits to do that and is dedicated to their children can do it. And you as a parent are not alone. So there are homeschool curriculums that are there to help you, and homeschool curriculums are different from school curriculums, because a homeschool curriculum is written for a parent, and it's got all the information and background and exercises, everything you need very well laid out in the curriculum books, whereas school curriculum books are written for teachers that have to then interpret the thing and work out how to implement it. So your curriculums are there to help you. Then there are support groups on where parents can come together and help each other. There are also homeschool consultants that you can go to, and they can help you choose the right curriculum for your individual child. So with all this help available, it is not difficult to start. But home education is firstly education of the parents, because parents have to learn a lot. They have to make huge paradigm shifts and have to educate themselves. So when you start home education in the first place, parents must educate themselves, and there are lots of resources on the available on the internet of how to start, where to get support groups, where to find curriculums. And you mentioned the SA Homeschoolers website is such a resource. And then there's the Pestalozzi Trust that will handle all the possible conflict situations that you can come into with officials. So join the Pestalozzi Trust, and then you can focus on your children in peace of mind.
Okay, I'm going to come back to the Pestalozzi Trust because I want to discuss that, but I want to bring in Fatima into the conversation. So, Sister Fatima, what was the deciding factor for you personally that you would like to homeschool your children from the onset?
Assalamu alaikum, Miriam. That's such a difficult question to answer because there were so many different factors. But we've been homeschooling for quite a number of years now. And I think what led me to it is when I was looking for schools for my oldest child, I wanted a particular type of school for him. I had looked into the different types of, he was still sort of preschool aged, and I wanted a certain type of education for him. So I wanted him to learn through play. I wanted a lot of Islamic elements to be incorporated in. Some of the schools that I liked didn't have Islamic elements. The Islamic schools I saw didn't have the play elements. And the more I looked into it and the more I researched it, I thought, you know what, I might as well try it. And I was lucky enough to have friends who were on the same journey with me. And so we did it as a group. And I'm now, we're not doing it as a group anymore. I'm now homeschooling my kids by myself, but I do have community support. And I know lots of homeschooling mothers, which makes it a lot easier to do. And we have networks over the country, and there's a lot of support. There's a big support system in South Africa, so it helps a lot. But I basically wanted my child to be able to play, and I wanted to incorporate my deen and my faith into every aspect of their learning. And I wanted the flexibility for them to be able to do that.
And in choosing a particular homeschooling curriculum or syllabus, was that difficult, or did you choose to develop your own curriculum or your own syllabus?
So, Miriam, the way, so I'm going to do just a little tiny breakdown because I didn't know this when I started homeschooling. But there are three main different ways that people homeschool. The one is they buy a curriculum, a boxed curriculum. Sometimes people call it school at home. Sometimes they buy a curriculum that's exactly what's the same that's being used in schools. That's one way to homeschool. The other way to homeschool is to not have any curriculum whatsoever, and they call that self-directed learning, and you follow the child.
Unschooling. Well, that was the concept. Yes. Last year or the year before was unschooling.
Self-directed learning. So I sit in the middle. So I do eclectic schooling, where I pick and choose the syllabus to suit my kids and to suit my own interests and the way that I want to teach and the way that they like to learn, and also the subject matter. So yeah, I choose a particular math syllabus. I've chosen a particular English syllabus. We choose different things. I look for Islamic elements wherever I can. So I do put together my own sort of curriculum for my children.
Yes, that sounds fascinating. I just want to bring now Bouwe into the conversation, because I need to ask him in terms of there are many curriculums you can choose from, or as Sister Fatima said, she developed her own curriculum. How much freedom does a South African parent has in terms of dictating a curriculum? And then when it comes to assessment, how do we align it with the current educational standards of assessment, Bouwe?
As a parent, you must do what's in the best interest of your child, and that means you choose the curriculum that suits the learning style of your child and your family circumstances. So there is a huge diversity of curriculums available on the market, and these uh, curriculums haven't been very well known because they're not designed for the school system. So I can just give you a quick overview of the type of educational approaches that there are. So we are used in the school system of what we call the traditional curriculum, and the traditional curriculum it takes knowledge and it divides it into subjects and grades. And but there are also other approaches. There is classical education. Classical education, it goes through different phases and emphasizes different things at different phases. So you've got the grammar phase, the logical phase, and the rhetorical phase. So it's very much focused on being able to express yourself very well. Then there is unit studies that says you must look at a topic as a unit. You mustn't divide it into biology and history and geography. So they look at a story, for example, and then they say, let's look at the story, and then let's look at the geography and the history and the morality and the principles in the story, and then you explore all the aspects of one topic, for example. Interesting enough, one of the most successful countries in education is Finland, and they use a curriculum that's very much based on unit studies. Then you've got an approach called Charlotte Mason that's very much focused on developing the personality of your child and instilling good habits in your child. And then I think then there's what people call natural learning or self-directed learning that Fatima has referred to already, or eclectic, which is basically a mixture of different curriculums. And on the SA Homeschoolers, you've got a whole exposition of those approaches. So there's a vast amount of curriculums available, and you must choose what's best for your child. And nobody can stop you from doing what's in the best interest of your child.
Okay, that's where now I want to now touch that hot potato in terms of the Petzalozzi Trust, I think, came because at one time there was that Bella Bill that was proposed. I think I did speak to somebody from the trust about 2 or 3 years ago regarding the department insistence in terms of following a CAPS aligned curriculum, or then they dictated in terms of what needs to be done and how it needs to be done and things like that. So where are we at now? Is the choice now back at the parents in terms of how we want to educate our children in terms of the syllabus, in the way, in the style, in the approach, or especially in foundation phase learning, is the department still being as prescriptive? Where are we at now in terms of that Bella Bill, and have we come to some sort of agreement with the department?
No, Bella Bill is still in the process of being developed. It still sits with the Department of Education. The Pestalozzi Trust is in constant communication to understand what the progress is. But the intention of Bella Bill, as well as the policy that was issued in 2018, is to bring home education in line with the formal education system. There is no doubt about it. The question was asked in Parliament, and the minister answered the question saying, we are developing new legislation and we're developing new policy in order to integrate or make home education part of the formal schooling system. And we are fighting that. We believe parents should have the right to choose whatever they want that is in the best interest of their children. And Bella, we are engaging with the Department of Basic Education. We are engaging with members of Parliament to address these issues and make them aware of them. So
currently, does the choice rest on the parents in terms of syllabus and approach? And I'll get to the process with Fatima in terms of registering a child. But Bouwe, at the moment, is it still in terms of South African law? Does the parent have a right to choose the type of approach in the curriculum?
The parent does have a constitutional right to do what's in the best interest of your child. And if a certain curriculum is the best interest of your child, you've got that right. And if the Department of Basic Education wants to take that away, organizations like the Pestalozzi Trust will challenge that.
So parents have good support. So if the parents out there thinking about this, these are constraints. There are organizations such as the Pestalozzi Trust that will campaign on your behalf and also fight on your behalf in terms of you being able to fulfill your constitutional right. So Fatima, your son now, I'm sure, is something in equivalent if you're not using the grades as prescribed by the department, but somewhere now in foundation phase. How was the process in terms of informing? So it's not so much a registration, but it's more to inform the department that you as a parent have elected to homeschool your son. Was that a difficult process and to submit?
So, Miriam, Bouwe is more the expert in this than I am, but I'll tell you what I know.
I just want to know.
I think from a parental perspective, a lot of the homeschoolers in South Africa are not registered with the department at the moment because they're very worried about the uncertainty surrounding Bella and the policies and everything. Personally, I'm still in the process of registering. I've chosen to register. I've looked at the policies in the Bella, and I think
are a lawyer by profession as well. So in terms of legislation, and that you have an trained eye in terms of reading this, so this will help a little bit more in your case as a parent.
Yes, so it does help, but we do have lots of organizations like Bouwe says, Pestalozzi, and there's SA Homeschoolers, and there's a South African National Homeschooling Association, and there's Facebook groups, and we are trying to break it down for people also to understand how it works. So my understanding from the discussions that I've been in with the department is that the department doesn't want to prescribe. You don't have to do a particular curriculum, a particular syllabus. But what the legislation does say at the moment is that it says that when you're home educating your child needs to be of the same standard or higher than the education that's being given in the public schools. So that's basically where you're aiming to be in terms of what education you're giving your child. So that's the current framework within which you are educating your child. When it comes to registration, it's been really difficult. The department's been very overwhelmed through COVID because there's been so much interest, and they haven't really been equipped to deal with all the interest that they've suddenly had in homeschooling. So to register, if you're happy to be registering and fulfilling the requirements, you basically go onto the government's website. They've got a list of documents they want you to give. They want you to explain your learning program, so what you're going to be doing, and then they want you to submit that. And previously, they used to do home visits. At the moment, I don't even know if they're doing that with COVID. The departmental stuff is very up in the air, but we're living in a state of emergency. So basically, parents need to do what's in the best interest of their child. And my understanding is that the department is quite flexible with regards to that, and they understand that parents are doing what's in the best interests of their children at the moment.
Okay, Bouwe, now to you. Can you now just explain to us from a procedural point of view in terms of how do we register in terms of informing the department? Is it a registration or information? As Fatima has mentioned, you have to go on the website and do this. So can you just explain to a new parent the process?
Yeah, as Fatima said, it's a simple process. You download the application form you complete it and you email it to a certain address. Um, the process is not complex. The concerns are around the requirements that you must meet. So if the officials implement the policy on home education strictly according to the policy on home education, then there's a lot of potential conflict between parents and officials. And we've got a legal opinion on that says there is definitely, if strictly applied, then there's potential for conflict. So many officials are very lenient or more open-minded, but other officials are not. And we experience it practically. If you're a member of the Pestalozzi Trust, you can phone an emergency number when a conflict situation comes up, and we get sometimes emergency calls on a weekly basis, and matters have been escalated to court in this year and in past years. So the potential for conflict is there, and it depends very much on the official. So some people have got a good experience, but other people do not have a good experience.
And then I need to ask you now, maybe in this past 3 or 4 years, many of what in America you term cottage schools have sprung up into, or what we call tutoring or support centers. So basically parents then register with as homeschooling, but then the teaching or educational part of it is outsourced. So whether it's children going, a few people going to a center, small groupings, or tutors come home in terms of that. What is your opinion in that? Where does this type of tutoring but under homeschooling fall in terms of that, in your opinion? Because those options are gaining popularity as well in the country.
Yes. So we must firstly understand the definition of home education is where your child receives his or her education at his or her own home. So then it's home education. But as soon as you send your child to a center at somebody else's home, then that's not home education anymore. So if you send your child to a center and you try to register for home education, the education officials will very quickly pick up, no, you're not homeschooling, you are sending your child to a learning center. And those learning centers have to be registered as private schools. So that is currently a problem in our law. It doesn't make provisions for these informal centers. It either makes provision for a school or a home, but it makes not provision for the huge diversity of educational forms between home and school. And a lot of these centers are doing excellent work. They are helping lots of children that cannot be accommodated to schools. And it's a pity that the law doesn't accommodate that. And it's for that reason that the Pestalozzi Trust has been engaging with these learning centers, and we've established a association for alternative educational institutions, and we are starting to do research and engaging with government to make space for these things. But currently, unfortunately, the law doesn't make provision for a lot of these centers.
So if I then hypothetically I register for homeschooling and then I elect to send my child to one of these centers, it could be that the department officials might come to those centers and close them down because they didn't apply as a private educational institution, and then the the responsibility of educating my children will then fall back onto me. Is
Yes.
that correct? I understand.
Those things do happen, and we are assisting those schools to ensure that those if that center is closed down, then a lot of those children are left without any means to get an education. And it's important that you must ensure that the rights of children are not negatively affected when things like that happen. So we are aware of that and engaging with centers.
Okay, Fatima, now I want to ask you as a parent, because I think one of the concerns with home educating your kids is the socialization experience and aspect, as well as in terms of your children developing that skill of interacting with their peers, because I think that's a great negative when you speak homeschooling. That's the first thing homeschool parents get sort of attacked on. Yeah, but your children in the workplace, they won't be able to work in teams, they won't be able to interact with peers because they don't have that setting, or they miss out on playgroup. And then there's that old saying that you learn as much in the playground as you do in the classroom. And that, so how you as Fatima, a parent, compensate for that social interaction in terms of when you homeschool your child?
So, Miriam, this is the first question that people ask homeschoolers all the time.
I see
And
Bouwe
honestly,
smiling there. He's laughing actually.
the first thing that I say when I reply is that, number one, we're not hermits. So we don't sit at home the whole day and never go out. So we do actually, we go out. My kids go out with me. We do extramurals. We meet up with other homeschoolers. Sometimes homeschoolers meet up in groups to learn. Sometimes we meet up in groups to socialize. Sometimes we meet up in groups to do outings. We meet friends. We meet family. So there really is a lot of socialization that still happens in our circle. But also, the research has showed that homeschoolers, when you look at them when they're grown up, they actually tend to be more involved in society. So they actually join more community groups, they vote more. So there actually is a lot of research to show that homeschoolers are very well socialized. And I like to tell people that, you have to look at the flip side of socialization as well. So for me, for our dean and from our faith, we know that good company is something that's always emphasized, right? So we know that you are supposed to surround yourself with good company. And even secularly, they say, you're the sum of the 5 people that you are the closest to, and your friends have such a big impact on you. And obviously, you can't keep your children in a bubble. You can never, ever keep your children in a bubble. But when they're young and when you homeschool, you have an opportunity to cultivate their social circle. Homeschooled kids tend to have manners that reflect their parents' manners because they spend more time with their parents. They tend to be able to socialize across the board. So not just with kids their own age, but they can relate to older children, adults, they can relate to younger children because they socialize in a different setting. And I see it as an opportunity to cultivate my children's social circle and be able to surround them with the best company that I can when I can do that. So I actually see homeschooling as a plus on the issue of socialization as opposed to a negative on the issue of socialization.
Okay, so on the personal side, I can testify because the group of friends that Fatima was talking about, that's my neighbor, and she's a medical, as you are a professional, she's a medical doctor, and sometimes the kids play together, and they call me Mo'alima, which is Arabic for teacher, and I'm still have that neighbor, as Fatima will say, from the wall we pass things, and we still have that going, and I'm so pleased that we can have it in today's age. So Fatima's son will also be confident enough to engage with me and hold a conversation with me, and he has the confidence. So whenever her children are over and I'm there, they will engage in conversation and they are confident. So as somebody who's in the field of child development, from what I've observed, they are well socialized in terms of the interaction with an educator such as myself. So, Bouwe, you must have had that question. I think that's probably one of the first attacks you get when you tell people, oh, I'm homeschooling my kids, and they feel maybe almost pity for your kids, oh, because you may be robbing them of that school experience and that. So, Fatima said a lot in terms of your years of experience. How do you respond to that question?
Now, I think there's very little I can add to Fatima. I actually learned a few things that she said. But one thing I want to add is that in a school system, you're socializing with your peers, with children of the same age all the time. But in home education, you are socializing with a range of people of different ages, with smaller children and bigger children and adults. So, which is a much more richer form of socialization, and people are actually often amazed how homeschoolers can play with children older and younger than themselves. So yeah, so that's the only thing I can add.
Of course. So, final question to both of you. How, Fatima, first you, as a mom, how is it transition from mom and then education facilitator and educator and that, or is it all in one? How do you balance that? Like, how do you children that mindset that, now it's mom the educator, and then even mom maybe the counselor, or mom the peer, and then mom is as the traditional mother figure?
So, Miriam, I learned a lot from some of my peers. Sorry, I'm just going to say this also, is that our group, our community group, is we call ourselves Fitra, Home Education South Africa. And I learned so much from the mums that are there. And one of the things that I learned from them is that we don't separate school and home. We don't take school and bring school into our home. So we're not doing school at home. Our life is about learning. Our life is about education. So I don't move from the role of mum to educator and switch between them. It's the same thing for me. As their mother, I am their educator. We embrace, our entire life is full of learning. So when we're on holiday and we're looking at, maybe we're at the beach, we are reading books about shells and fish and that sort of thing. And I'm going to count that as part of their learning and part of their education. So I'm not jumping back and forth. It's not easy to manage your day and to juggle everything. As mothers, we have a lot to juggle.
Do you feel overwhelmed?
I think any mother would feel overwhelmed at any stage in their life anyway. But there are ways to deal with it. And what I love about homeschooling is that it's got so much flexibility. So if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I say, right, we're on holiday this week. We're only doing read alouds so that mommy can have a break, and then I can chill. And then when I'm feeling like I've got my things together, then we start school again. Or we incorporate more learning, or we do more informal learning. So it is. And what I wanted to offer, to your listeners, to anybody, Fitra, we were an informal group of ladies. For many years now, we've been chatting via WhatsApp. Some of us, we're all over the country. And now we're formalizing, and we are soon going to open up to the public. We want to offer support. We want to, we've got forums going and conversations going, so mothers can say, oh my goodness, I'm feeling overwhelmed. What should I do now? Or, how do I teach this? Or, what is the best? What do you think about this curriculum? And we're hoping to sort of transition mothers in and chat to them about the different ways that you can school, or the ways that homeschooling is so flexible. So we're getting there. And if anybody does need support, Fitra will be there. There's a lot of support in the South African community, but for Muslims particularly, we're not only open to Muslims, but for Muslims particularly, it's a group of Muslim mums trying to incorporate God consciousness and Allah into everything that we do and into our schooling. And we see the need to be able to give support to the wider community as well. So inshallah, we'll be doing that in the future if anybody does need help and support.
So, Bouwe, before I ask you to respond as a dad, how do you transition in that? But what I'm hearing from you and Fatima, and what I've come to learn, that actually homeschooling parents, there's a lot more support, a lot more sharing of information, and a lot more goodwill than I, as a parent who sent my children to an educational institution, had, because somehow, parents at school, we sort of have this competition that, my child needs to be academically there in terms of receiving awards and accolades. And it's sort of like the underlying competition that parents have with each other in terms of their children's progress and that. And there's very little, I found in my experience, genuine support, although I tried to change it by myself being a counselor and offering that support. But here, from your website, from what Fatima's initiative and her friends, and there's plenty of support system, and everybody shares this goodwill, and as parents, you in this journey together, and there's a greater respect amongst parents in terms of what you want to do and how you want to do it. Am I correct in my assessment of this conversation between you and Fatima, Bouwe?
Yeah, I think parents are natural educators. When you get a child, you learn the child to walk, you learn the child to talk, you learn the child to eat with knives and forks. So why do you have to outsource certain piece of education to teachers and others not? By the time the child comes to school, the parents have already achieved a lot of complex thing. Learning somebody to talk is not easy. So it's a very arbitrary thing that teachers need to do certain things and parents other things. Parents are natural teachers. And the other thing is parents have got a huge advantage over teachers because the parent has got the personal relationship with the child. So you tend to learn better from somebody with which you've got a personal relationship than from a stranger. And there's a lot of research done on that from a psychologist with the name of Neumann, a Canadian psychologist, that shows that the bond between the teacher and the child is the most critical factor for successful education. And that is what the parents have. So maybe the parent is not as clever as a teacher when it comes to a certain subject, but the parents can learn. And the other benefit is if, let's say, you teach your child something and you don't understand it yourself, so you go to Google and you try to figure it out, then the children don't only learn the thing that you're learning them, but they're also learning how to learn. If you don't know what it is, then you figure it out. So those are all the benefits that parents have over teachers.
And this discussing has been so fascinating. I myself have learned so much in terms of an alternate of homeschooling. I'm a granny now, and while you're speaking, I'm just thinking maybe I should then undertake to homeschool my grandchildren. I didn't get the opportunity with my children, but I feel I'm still young enough to be able to then take them down this path here. And who knows, Fatima and I live in one community, so I'll be then looking to her for support. And in terms of maybe seriously considering this as an alternate for my grandchildren, you know what they say, you do incorrectly with your children. No, you'll remember those words. You'll do it correctly the next way around as a grandparent. So it's been fascinating, though. Thank you for your time, and Fatima for your time. I really, really enjoyed this discussion. It was most informative, and for parents out there looking for an alternate, I hope that this provided you with enough information regarding homeschooling as an alternate, especially in line with the pandemic we are facing. And they say it's going to be with us for a long time. Vaccines are available, but we still need to see the safety and the effectiveness of the vaccine. So something you should consider. And please go on Bouwe's website, Homeschooling SA, look at the Petzalazi Trust, become a member if you're going that way. And Fatima, as soon as you have those details and you formalize your support group, please do share them with me so I can share it on our social media platforms. But to both of
Mariam,
you,
you can find us on social media at the moment, and we have an email address, communications@fitra.co.za. But the website will be up soon, inshallah.
Okay, maybe I'll have you on and provide you the platform when it's up and running. But thank you so much, Bham. May both you and Fatima be under the mercy of the Almighty. Shazia has just put that up for us there. Shazia, if you can just put it up again there. But all the best for you, and thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated. Go well. Peace and blessings upon you both.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Bouwe. Thank you, Mariam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. And that has been a fascinating discussion. And I would like to thank you for indulging me for extra 20 minutes of your time and granting me that privilege. But there were so many questions that were not answered, and I didn't want to leave our parents and our listeners hanging in the balance to say, Mariam Mia, you had not covered every aspect. So I hope I have covered everything as extensively as possible. If not, please do check out SA School Homeschoolers website, or send Fatima an email and she'll respond. But yes, we've provided parents with a viable and maybe cost-effective alternate as well. Until tomorrow, may you all be under the mercy and the protection of the Almighty. Peace and blessings to you all.